How will Jeff Sessions change things?
He'll put it back to his historic sort of a blind justice. As a U.S. attorney, he's got a broad group of prosecutions he wants to do. He wants to reprofessionalize and take some of the politics out of it. Famously, Eric Holder, when asked about what his job was, instead of saying, I'm the top law enforcement, that's my job, he said, I wear two hats. The second one clearly being political. Jeff Sessions' goodbye in the Senate set a tone that it's not about being political. He's going into a job that is not just another cabinet job. It's a job that requires that he be, as to law enforcement, apolitical.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he is going to be, though, the steward of the rule of law. And he is going to be really enforcing what Donald Trump has been talking about.
He's going to enforce that. He also has a passion to deal with the injustice that still lingers sometimes for African Americans, other minorities. You know, he got chastised in the process based on his history, but his actual action history before he came to the Senate was one of supporting sort of the Brown versus Board of Education. It's justice's job to make sure that, in fact, there is fairness in the process and to look for injustice. So I expect him to reinvigorate that part of it, too.
Congressman, let me get your take on this tweet that Donald Trump just put out moments ago.
And I have this no comment on the tweet rule, but I'll do what I can for you.
I can tell you it's about a bigger issue that you can't comment on. How about that?
Here's what President Trump just tweeted moments ago. Senator Richard Blumenthal, who never fought in Vietnam when he said for years he had, major lie, now misrepresents what Judge Gorsuch told him. We will speak to Judge Andrew Napolitano later on in this show about this, and you know that Judge Gorsuch apparently had made a comment about Donald Trump's travel ban.
He said that the recent attacks on the judiciary by Donald Trump, this is what Gorsuch allegedly told Richard Blumenthal, were, quote, demoralizing and disheartening.
That's right, because he said so-called judge.
Right, yes.
That's what he was saying.
So Blumenthal had a meeting with Gorsuch, and then Blumenthal comes out and says, hey, let me tell you what Judge Gorsuch told me.
Well, and this is where we have to look at, and I said I have a no comment on President Trump's tweets, because if you stick to the tweet and then you look at the comments, what usually happens is people want to take 140 or less characters and mischaracterize them. Is it appropriate for an incoming justice, and I'm sure Neil will be confirmed, to immediately begin looking at the body of the federal court and being proud of it and wanting to defend it against those who would somehow diminish the system that ultimately gives us what we define as justice, including a federal judge who may have been right or wrong? That's to be determined by the appellate process. Yeah, it's exactly right, and I think that's the reason President Trump appointed him, is this is somebody who believes strongly, even if it means that he's not always going to be with the president's views. But going back to the tweet stands as its own. It is an example of the president disagreeing with a federal judge in his way. But let's remember...
by the way, what Trump said about Richard Blumenthal is true. Richard Blumenthal publicly would talk about when I was in Vietnam.
Right.
When I was in Vietnam, he was in the Marines here in the United States, working in Washington, D.C. He had never fought in Vietnam. He was never in country.
And that's a separate issue, but I do think, and I'd like to stay on judges.
Sure. Sorry.
It's important that we look at our Supreme Court Justice, Associate Justice nominee for what he is. He's a brilliant scholar. He is somebody who deserves to have that overwhelming support he had when he went to the 10th Circuit. And I think that's part of where, let's not mischaracterize what he says in private. If Judge Gorsuch wants to say something, I respect it. Let's also remember that we are in a conflict between the executive branch and the judicial branch, in which one person in one court in Seattle has an opinion. We're a long way from determining that executive order and whether somehow we're going to turn upside down a history of executive orders, which of course includes Iranians coming in 1979 when Jimmy Carter had to deal with, do I let these people keep coming while they're holding our hostages? This is not the first time we faced it. It's the first time the president's ability to do it has been challenged.